This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
Mark, for many people, a 401k, it really ends up being the biggest retirement asset. I recently found an article on MSN.com warns about tapping it too freely because of something called phantom income. So if you're not careful, you could trigger extra taxes just by crossing certain income thresholds. So if withdrawals themselves are creating those kinds of surprises, how do you make sure that we're not accidentally pushing ourselves into a higher tax bracket in retirement, just giving us more of a headache?
That phantom income phrase is used in different ways, and I think in this respect, it's just the idea that if we become too comfortable pulling money out of our savings accounts, our retirement accounts, any kind of accounts, we can sometimes lose track of that. And when we lose track, that's how we stumble into these unforeseen situations where we owe more in taxes, for example, like you're describing. You bump yourself into a higher tax bracket, or you cause additional Medicare premium surcharges, what we call IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment amounts, or you cause a secondary tax on your Social Security. There's some of these hidden surprises that happen because of what some people would call phantom income. I would just say extra income. Some people find it a little too convenient to reach in, particularly during the early years of retirement, into these retirement accounts because they see these big numbers and they figure, it's going to last forever. And hopefully it will, with proper planning. But that's one of my roles as a coach, really, is to kind of be that sounding board for people and sometimes maybe caution them off of the ledge. Do you really need 5 cruises this first year, or would 4 be sufficient? It's not me telling them what to do. It's their life and their money, of course. But sometimes there has to be a little bit of a balancing act. I can think of a particular couple that's very, very dear to me, and they spent through half of their retirement savings in the first 5 years. I was getting quite anxious about it. They knew that, but they reminded me, this was our plan, was we were going to, do a lot of cruising and have some experiences. And they're going to be okay. They've got pensions and Social Security and all, and have the capacity to live more modestly, but we've just got to pace ourselves, that's all I'm saying. And sometimes it helps to have a sounding board, and that's very much what the financial advisor can and should be. I know I function in that role a lot for people. I'll get emails out of the blue with, hey, you think this is a good or a bad idea? And they just need some reassurance, and they ultimately make the choice. It's their money, their lives. But yeah, sometimes we've been able to talk people out of some pretty pricey mistakes. Well, it's funny you mentioned this because I literally had a call last week from a client who kind of wanted permission to be able to take a few weeks off and go on a vacation with some friends. She's done it for many years. She absolutely has the capacity, and we were able to help her make that the decision to go have those experiences. Most of the people that work with us have at least 250, more commonly about 500,000 in assets or more. She's got twice that, and so it was just a matter of those who have been the best savers, ironically, tend to be those who have the hardest time spending the money. And so I'm often in this position of giving people who have means permission to go do what they already know in their heart they can do, and talking back the people who really don't have the means who want to. So, yeah, come visit with us. We'd love to help people get perspective on what their capacity is for spending. And maybe it's a conscious choice to spend more during that first decade of retirement when health and opportunities are good. Things are going to slow down for most of us as we get older. So come visit with us. We can help you have proper and healthy perspective on all this. Yeah, so come visit with us. If you need someone to help you with spending capacity, we'll call it a spending capacity review, as it were, just to see, what are your guardrails, what range can you comfortably spend in without running out? And if you need structure in there, that's absolutely where we specialize. Come visit with us. We can absolutely help you go out and live your life to the fullest based upon your circumstances and your goals.
And that's what retirement's all about. And the best news, guys, it is complimentary. No cost, no obligation here. 702-996-4050. 702-996-4050. More details, of course, on that website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. Flashback to 2011, Warren Buffett threw out an idea on CNBC that was kind of a joke, but also kind of a challenge. It's about fixing the deficit, and he says it's really not all that complicated. Here's his idea.
can end the deficit in 5 minutes. You just pass a law that says that anytime there's a deficit of more than 3% of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. Now you've got the incentives in the right place, right? So it's capable of being done. And if you guys can't get it done, we'll get some other guys to get it done.
First things first, I 100% support this. What about you? If you guys can't get your job done, get out.
Man after my own heart. I love him. Yeah, stop their pay.
I mean, unfortunately, that was not the case. And you fast forward to today, the deficit not getting smaller. It's actually projected to be around $1.9 trillion this year. And listen, persistent deficits, they can pressure future decisions on taxes, Social Security, even Medicare. You talked about being flexible a few moments ago, Mark. Let's talk about putting flexibility into our retirement plans when it comes to future taxes and benefits and inflation. Talk to me here.
Well, we absolutely have to plan for taxes because it's not what we make, it's what we keep that matters, right, at the end of the day. You know, I just got back from last night from a conference in Phoenix, a couple of days, and this was the primary theme of the conference was the financial state of our country. And, you know, we were talking about the fact that at the start of COVID, the national debt was at $31 trillion, and here we are just 5-6 years later, and we're at $39 trillion. I mean, we've almost doubled the national debt here in less than basically half a decade. And it's just scary when you think about it for a couple of reasons. I mean, Penn Wharton came out with a study. Now, Penn Wharton is the business school back at University of Pennsylvania, happened to be where Trump went, but they came out with an interesting study a couple of years back, and they basically said that we've got about 20 years left before we hit a point of no return, basically, where no amount of tax increases or cuts in spending is going to cure the government from hitting a default. And so we know that in the next 10, 15 years, there's going to have to be some massive tax increases, and there's going to have to be some spending or cuts or some combination of those two. I don't see this government cutting their spending the way we would hope. We just saw some crazy stuff in the news this morning. And so I really see tax rates increasing, if not doubling. Many of us believe they're going to have to double here in the next 10 to 20 years. And the interesting thing is this new slate of senators that are just being elected here for the next 6 years, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the Medicare and Social Security disaster that's coming, because we know that by 2032, there's going to be a 24% cut in Social Security benefits unless some things change. And so literally we have this incoming slate of politicians who are going to have to deal with this problem. They can't keep kicking the can down the road. And, you know, the current administration says they're not going to deal with it. So they'll be gone in 28, which gives us really 4 years to deal with it. So as usual, Congress is going to bring us right to the 11th hour. But as individuals, back to your original question, as individuals, what can we do to plan? Well, there's absolutely a number of things we can do. We got far more control over this than we think. The Roth conversion should be part of most Americans' plans. Most people have spent the last 50 years accumulating money in tax-deferred accounts in the false belief that they're going to have less income in the future and be in a lower tax bracket. And for reasons entirely beyond our control, tax rates very likely are going to increase, which means all these trillions of dollars people have accumulated in retirement accounts that have never been taxed before are going to get taxed up the wazoo, whatever you want to say it. You know, it's going to get taxed really bad. And so to the degree we're willing to pay the tax on those monies now, we can avoid future tax increases in the future. And that's the whole Roth conversion idea. So I would say to our listeners, you know, if you have money that's accumulated in tax-deferred accounts, money that's never been taxed for retirement, and you've never heard of these ideas before, come to our classes, come visit with me. Let us show you. We can show you very quickly how you can save tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes simply by taking these preventive strategies so that you're not leaving your future in the hands of an unserious Congress. I mean, for lack of a better word here, I mean, they just have not been serious about these issues, and we really can't leave our future to that fate. So come visit with us. We can help you avoid significant future pain.
Yeah, I mean, future pain with Uncle Sam. Obviously, tax analysis is a great way to start this conversation. Again, these Roth conversions, these investments that have never been taxed before. Right now, we're at an all-time low as far as taxes are concerned. A lot of folks say taxes are on sale, but we do know that taxes will increase. So you starting to be proactive now and utilizing these different tax strategies is going to help save you money. Let's start with that tax analysis first. Again, that phone number is 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. Just a few moments ago, Mark, you were talking about Social Security, and we have been hearing it for a while. 2035, it's going to run out. 2032, it's going to run out. Well, Turns out they are in trouble again. I say they as in Social Security because they have big problems here. It starts with the current birth rate in the U.S. Here is TikTok's news girl, Lisa Remillard.
At the end of July, the Centers for Disease Control said, as of 2024, the fertility rate in this country dropped to an all-time low. Less than 1.6 kids per woman ages 15 to 44. The rate needed for a population to replace itself from one generation to the next is 2.1 kids per woman. The fact is, when you're not hitting that replacement rate and there are fewer babies, in the end, you end up with a country with a larger proportion of older people and a smaller proportion of younger, healthier people who are able to work.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. We've talked about it before, I believe, especially with the cost of living and inflation. Look, a lot of young folks, they're not wanting to start families. They're trying to figure out how to pay for themselves, much less raise children, which is a huge expense. So that could account for the fertility crisis, if you will. And if this trend continues, fewer workers could be playing into the system, right? Putting more pressure on Social Security yet again. So someone who's 5 or 10 years from retirement, Mark, how much faith should they really put into getting that monthly check?
Well, I think if you're that close to retirement or to claiming Social Security, you have a good chance that your benefits will be there. But that's being optimistic because we had a precedent for this in 1983, but back then the projected cut was like in the 3 to 5% range. And what they did was they delayed the full retirement age from 65 progressively to age 67, where we're at now. And then they implemented a tax on the Social Security benefit that can be up to 85% of your benefit being taxed. So I'm quite confident they're going to continue that solution and delay Social Security even further. They're going to have to tax it even more. But again, we've got 8 times the problem now that we had back then. And so I fear there's going to be some cuts, and it's particularly going to hit our kids, the younger people. I'll be 60 this year, and those of us a little closer to retirement, I think, are going to be safeguarded in some ways. But I really am fearful for our kids because their expectations in so many ways are going to be dashed. And the truth is, the younger generation now is looking at, they want free college, free childcare, free this, free that. They're kind of tired of, the hey boomer kind of thing, the grandparents who basically destroyed the country's financial situation, getting so many benefits and leaving them with so little. So we're seeing this kind of boomerang effect. But it is scary. I mean, we go back to 1935 when they introduced Social Security. You had 42 workers for every one recipient of Social Security. Now we have 3 workers for every one recipient of Social Security. And within the next decade, there will only be 2 workers for every one recipient of Social Security. So what was once a financially sound program is not because of these demographic trends. And we really see this in countries like Europe and Japan and very much in China, with their one-child policy. In Japan, we've got this aging population, too few young people to support them. It's actually a big argument for immigration. Now, I prefer it be legal, obviously, but we do need immigrants because we simply don't have enough young people to be able to sustain our social insurance programs. So there's a lot of ripple effect here. But the bottom line to your question is people need to plan to be independent without Social Security and then appreciate what they get from Social Security, because we just don't know how these unserious politicians are going to be dealing with the future, and they've got to deal with this issue within the next 5-6 years. So it's kind of scary times in some ways to me, because I just don't trust what's become of our political class. It's more theater than serious business, and these are serious problems that we have to address very quickly.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.